Most bass fishermen throw the same lures every spring, but there's one lure that almost nobody talks about that absolutely slays bass this time of year. It's simple, versatile, and gets big bites. Let me show you why this lure is a game changer for spring bass fishing. Just picked up the Speed Boss, a swimming worm, double tail one. Look at all this flooded grass here, man. That is the exact cover you want. You can see that grass on my shoulder. Speed worming, swimming a worm. Easiest way to catch them in the spring when there's much cover. You take an extra wide gap hook, a light sinker. This is like an 1/8 ounce or smaller. And then you have it exposed here where the hook points back in. It pops out easily, but you can swim this worm through really heavy cover. You see there's bushes up here behind me. There's flooded grass, like just stuff that was growing on the shore. It's perfect. You can slither it up and over the weeds. This weeds, it just like crawls over the top, and then you let it fall in. You just throw it out, slow reel it back. A swimming worm in the springtime. Fish get around flooded cover. We had a big rain, the water comes up. Anytime you get around flooded cover in the spring, a swimming worm like this Speed Boss, man, it is killer. Peg that weight so it doesn't slide down your line. Use a real light one, about an eighth of an ounce. Expose it, make sure it's on, hooked on good and straight, and then cast it out there, slow roll it with your rod tip up, crawl it over the grass, let it fall down in some holes. Basically let the fish tell you what they want, whether they want it dropped or continuously reeling. But man, swimming a worm, this is the #1 way they catch them in Florida in the spring. It works all over the country though, guys. So it's the Speed Boss. When you swim a worm, I'm throwing out to open water now, but I'll show it to you. The cast, I want my rod tip going up. I want it kind of pointing up at about a 10 o'clock position. And then your line's gonna come out and have this bow. That's gonna allow it to crawl over the top of the grass. So reel it kind of slowly with that rod tip up, and the worm's going to catch in every piece of grass. It's going to crawl up over it, and it's going to fall down that hole. It's going to crawl over the next piece of grass, fall down, and the fish, you're doing this in like 2 feet of water or less, and when that's coming over the grass, it falls into open spots. Those open spots are where they're making beds, where they're getting territorial. They're going to spawn in the spring. Anytime it's around the spawn, when the water temp's upper 50s up to about 70 degrees, you know, bass are spawning up in the shallows. You get flooded cover, any shallow grass, about 3 feet or less, and swimming a worm is deadly. Now the other retrieve with the swimming worm is when they get spawning a little bit deeper. Once the water gets about 2.5, 3 feet or deeper, they won't come up all the way to the surface. You have to get down into their spawning bed a little bit. So in that case, I'll fish it a little slower with my rod tip down. So I point my rod tip down and then just slow reel it. And that, instead of crawling up and over the grass, then it's gonna just plow right in there. And you're gonna slither right through weeds. And instead of snapping it free like you would like a bladed jig or a crankbait, you're just gonna swim it through there. If it catches, it'll just crawl right through. And if they're sitting on a bed, one of those open spots, it comes swimming right through, right up on top of them. They have no choice. They either have to snap at it and eat it or swim out of their bed. And a lot of times they'll snap at it and eat it. It's pretty weedless. It'll come right through all that vine and hydrilla and weeds and stuff, even flooding bushes and stuff. Most people are throwing jigs in there, spinnerbaits and stuff. The swimming worm, the old Speed Boss, man, it is a killer in the spring. And of course, you want to know what colors. You see I'm throwing a June bug red right here. If it's dark like this, overcast, even in muddy water a lot of times, I like that purple, the June bug red. And then this is more of a natural one. When it's sunny, when the fish are getting a better look at it, this kind of bluegill looking, it's called Skeet's Green Money. It's purple and green with some flake, almost a little bit of white in there. It kind of looks like a shad too. It's just a great all-around color. If the water gets stained, I like to take chartreuse or orange and dye the tails bright, so that orange or that chartreuse to help them see it a little bit of contrast. But basically, just out of the package, they work most of the time. And then the other thing is the size. They make these in a 4, 5, and 6. You know, this is a big, to me, it's not the length as much, it's how thick this thing is. This is a big profile. The bigger bait, if I'm casting it and letting it sit, Then I go to the small one, like that 4-inch. But this is the retrieving it. When I'm swimming it, the 6-inch to me is by far the best version. The big Speed Boss. It just creates a big commotion. You're looking for the big females. They're aggressive and territorial. You might pass up a few bucks on it, but you're going to get those big ones to trigger on it. That one was crazy. They kept running at me. I couldn't catch up. That was a male. You know, they're getting up here. We had rain in the water. This perfect situation. It rained. The water is rising. It's come up about a foot already, or close to it. I should say about half a foot, about 6 inches. It flooded this stuff. They're coming up here. Today's full moon day. They're making the move up to spawn. It's almost 60 degrees. It's that time of year. So these fish haven't been up here. It's not even been flooded. They're just moving up now. The bucks get up there first. The females, a lot of times these little mini points where it's just a small, tiny little point or a little jog, they'll be sitting out there just a little bit deeper. And then these tiny pockets, this pocket's the size of, like say a big garage or something like that. It's not a huge back of a cove, it's just a tiny pocket. And in a couple of days, there'll be like 2-3 fish spawning in here. And then, you know, the females move in with them. So the swimming worm, anytime that rising water, you get that perfect situation. You can cover that water really fast. These fish, when they first move up, are aggressive. They're looking to feed. They haven't been messed with yet. So I can cover a lot of water, wind this through. I can throw it up into the bushes. I can bring it through the grass and fish the outside edge even, and just pick off those active ones. Later, that's when, you know, the Senkos, the general, the wacky worm and stuff, you have to come in here, let it sit forever, slow fish it. Not right now. When they're first moving up, they're aggressive. Cover water, pick off those active ones, and sooner or later you run into those big ones. You know, and then on gear real quick, you don't need too fancy. If I'm in really thick water, say a really thick cover grass like in Florida, I'll get a braided line, like 30-40 pound braid, Berkley or spider wire Dura braid. But most of the time like this, it's clear water. I'm fine with this. Is 15 pound 100% fluorocarbon, and then I use a 4/0 or 5/0. It's the Fusion 19. It's the extra wide gap super line hook, so it's more stout. And then I use a high-speed reel. This is the Abu Garcia STX, but it's the 8-to-1. Like that fish you saw there, they hit it, come running out, and you really need to be able to, you can slow reel it as much as you need, even with the fast reel, but you have to have that high-speed reel to try to catch up, and sometimes like that, you just can't catch up to them. And then a worm rod, I'm using a 7.5 medium heavy extra fast. I like to fling it out there. They get spooky in the shallows. The farther you can put it away from the boat, the better you're going to do getting big bites especially. And then also just moving a lot of line. Again, when they're moving fast like that, I can move more line, get that line up out of the water. You know, sometimes you don't want fish to jump. You want it to stay down. When they're in shallow grass like this, you pull them up to the surface and try to just ski them across. That's where this big heavy duty worm rod, a 7-foot, a 7.3, something like that will do fine as well. Medium heavy. It's not that heavy of a bait, just that light worm hook. So medium heavy to me works a little bit better there. But your basic worm gear, and it's not super critical. You can be used a little bit, kind of any worm rod will do fine, but I think this is the best setup to really fling it out there and be able to play those fish. The other thing on these outside ones, once the fish start spawning, the nice thing about the Speed Boss, I can swim this through the shallow grass, but I can kill it, and just like a Texas rig, I can let this thing drop around bushes and holes in the grass and the edge. If I think there's maybe a fish spawning there, and it can change, like all of a sudden halfway through the day they're all chasing, they're up active, and then all of a sudden they stop chasing. Well, a few of them are starting to spawn, and that's where dropping it in and tip you off to it. It gives you the combination. You can wind it and fish it like you would a spinnerbait, cover a lot of water, and then also fish like a jig or a general, you know, the Senko type bait, where you drop it in and check for both. So it's like a combo. I can search and I can check for fish on the bottom all in one lure. You see, I just missed one there. on the swim worm, the Speed Boss, and then I picked up 2 different swim jigs, and I tried a you know, the bladed jig too, and it's just I can't get bit in those other ones when it's really stringy flooded shore grass, not those nice clean weed beds, but just shallow viney stuff. Like a frog will come through it even better. Problem is, you know, if they're coming all the way to the surface, the frog is king. It'll come through anything, but a lot of times when they're spawning like this, they want something that kind of falls down in a little bit or gets all the way down, and that's where swimming a worm, that Speed Boss, is so good. So I fish back through here, I had trouble getting my bait through it, and no bites. That every time I pick up the Speed Boss, I'm getting bit. So it seems like a matter of, I just, like I said, just cover a lot of water and that newly flooded grass, you run into one.